Hey everyone, I'm Arnell, and today I am thrilled to be talking with Dillon the biologist, a science communicator, wildlife expert, and all-around nature nerd who's built an amazing community by blending real research with real personality. So Dillon, I've recently started following your journey, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions today. So
Yeah.
I want to get started with your background. I read a little bit about you, and one of the most fascinating things I found was that you were actually scared of nature at first. Could you tell me a little bit about how you transitioned to from that to like the nature man, basically?
Yeah, it's a fun one. Because the line I like to use is that I've changed from fear to fascination.
Mm.
So like growing up, I was watching all the Animal Planet shows, like the core ones, like Steve Irwin, Mutual of Omaha, or really kind of whatever came on public like TV on Saturday mornings. There was some like show that's just like a memory that I can never actually find the title of it anymore. But it was all these wildlife clips. Um, and I was terrified of so much because I would end up watching like, oh, this shark swam up a river and got into a lake and then bit some kid on the leg, or there's these parasites that will get you. So I kind of got consumed by the extreme cases. Uh, but what ended up happening was I guess like to add insult to injury is I grew up in a pet store. My family like builds aquariums and pet store fixtures and stuff. So I was always around animals, but I was terrified of even going outdoors. And then yeah, one day I like held a snake. Someone had I think it was a Burmese python, and they gave it to me, and then it didn't, immediately try to constrict me. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong about these things that are gonna hurt me. And from there, it was interesting because I had like a knowledge background of watching all these shows, and now I'm like, oh, I'm not scared of them anymore. So became like a really fascination driven thing that, yeah, kind of ended up leading to now, which is like 10 years of field biology and education and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting how kind of the media and everything that's out there will kind of like disrupt your view of, nature and wildlife. But, if you step outside, it's like really awesome out there. So I really appreciate that perspective. So I know that you touched on working in a kind of an aquarium pet store type of thing that was owned with your family. So how did that kind of shape your background as far as like biology and how you approach it now?
Yeah, it impacts in a lot of different ways. I mean, at some level when I was I was like managing the reptile department at 15 and stuff.
Mhm.
So with that, there was a lot of having to acquire information and knowledge and, know the care requirements of every single species that I have and translate that to customers. So for me, that was sort of instrumental in terms of doing a biology career and then education because so much of it is just memorizing facts and theories and putting things together. So on that front, there was definitely a major impact, but also it got me, I don't know, I got exposed to so many different species from so many
Mm.
different regions with so many different traits that it was specifically that type of stuff of like, where is this species from? What traits does it have to sort of exist within its environment that got me into biology even more and more. It was definitely not like I'm in the pet store and that I'm going to become a biologist. I think there was like all these little stepping stones along the way. Like I went to
Mm.
college, and when I was there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have like a private zoo, and then like I got rid of that idea in a couple of years, and then I'm like, let me start doing field biology. Um, but then I think like on the other side of it, coming from like a conservation point of view, I got like really exposed to like how the pet industry is so interlinked with poaching, with like resource extraction, with the just money and corruption in general, that it
Mhm.
really helped me frame a lot of conservation issues as I was seeing them, and as I'm like learning about these conservation issues, I'm like, oh wait, I know about that. I know about a species that was taken too much, and then on my wholesale lists, it's now like 10 times the amount because their population got wiped out. That happened with emperor scorpions one time. I used to get them for like a couple dollars, and then overnight they were like $20, $30 wholesale. Um, and yeah, so it's like, seeing this real world experience has definitely made a huge impact on my own career.
Mhm. Yeah, and your career is like extremely impressive. You've been like pretty much everywhere, it seems like. So, was there a specific moment where you thought, okay, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do forever?
It's so hard. I think so. My first like field experience was out in Panama. I was there for a week, and it was honestly kind of an awful trip. Everything fell through. It just I don't know. It was like we were supposed to be at a research station and looking for snakes and extracting parasites, and we never like got to the research station except for the last day. They said we couldn't access it for some reason. We found one snake the whole trip, and it was the first day, and we didn't know what it was, so we didn't even know if it was venomous or not. And it was like this mess. But for me, I was just the I think like 18-year-old who got to tag along. So I didn't care that we didn't find anything. It didn't affect my results. I didn't care we didn't go to the research station because I'd never been to this region of the world before. So I got to see glass frogs and basilisk lizards run across the water, and
Wow.
yeah, so many of these organisms that I knew from the pet industry, uh,
Mhm.
I got to see in the wild, and the overall experience of going out in the wild looking for organisms. I think from that exact moment, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But then I think there's been so many different experiences along the way that have sort of shaped how I want to do this path and what I'm really interested in. So yeah, but definitely that first field experience got me hooked, and then after that, I was just doing research nonstop.
And I like the expression using different things as stepping stones. And I think one of those parts of your career has definitely been Learn Adventurously. So with that, would you say where do you see it going and what made you come up with the idea to begin with?
Yeah, so Learn Adventurously, it's I I still struggle to call it my business because I didn't start it as a business.
Mhm.
It started as a blog, and the goal is that learn adventurously. Like we're gonna learn about these learn about the natural world by actually doing things outdoors. So I coordinated a few like bio blitzes, having people go out and look for organisms, and then also like paper conference. And so it was just this like, let's just get research out there, let's get information out there. And then it was like, yeah, stepping stones again. A really good friend of mine from my research in Belize, he's a tour guide, Jean Put, and he was like, hey, you want to run a tour? And I said, let's do it. And so Learn Adventurously was already like a perfect name for running an eco tour. So we were just
Yeah.
like, let's not change it, let's just keep it. We ran eco tours for a couple of years before I like took a pause with uh, my master's and whatnot. But nowadays, it's sort of morphed into this larger educational platform. I think is the right term for it now. But I just put on there like self-paced courses, weekly lessons, and then we also still run tours and workshops and stuff. So for like my stage of the development with that, I guess I'm still very early on with it. I didn't get to, I started it while I was in grad school, so it was always sort of like, let's just put it off to the side and wait and wait. And now I'm like finished with grad school. I'm like, okay, now it's time to go all in. But in the long term, the goal with it is to have a research station slash like field school where people can actually uh, basically do the things that I did to get me into my career, which is learn about
Mhm.
biology, do research, but also interact with the public that are doing like eco tours or study abroads or wilderness retreats. So I think it kind of it's my answer to the all biologists need to fund their research in some way. This is how I want to fund my research. So yeah.
Yeah, and I heard you talked a little bit about your master's, which congratulations on getting that as well. But I did read that it was less field work and more finding out those biodiversity hotspots. So what made you focus more on that instead of, traditional field work, which is your previous, like your previous work?
Yeah, so it was I was looking at my own skill set and where I want to go with my career. So when I was looking at my at going for a master's, I already had about 4 years of field experience doing research on a wide variety of different projects, and I'd already like published a little bit. So for me, the master's was an opportunity to learn a skill I didn't have before that I could then apply somewhere else. And I knew something that is really important, but something I was really bad at was like statistics and data analysis and data management.
I
Um,
feel like you.
yeah, yeah. So it was this thing of like I know I kind of have a knack for numbers and working in Excel. Before that, I was building out a database for like an undergraduate research department. So yeah, so I'd like worked with data and I knew like it kind of clicked, but I still didn't really know what I was doing. So the master's was a very intentional, like, let's just focus on this. I'll get my field component out by still going to Belize, running research on the summer, or helping out with local projects. And then what ended up happening was I started, and then like 6 months later, COVID hit, and we all went into lockdown. So I
Oh
had
God.
like zero field experience for so long. And and then it just like I budgeted for 2 years, but here I am in San Diego where it's really expensive. And so it just like, kind of spiraled into like, cool, I'm here for 5 years. I'm doing a crazy big master's project.
Hmm.
And then the ultimate like thesis publication was using evolutionary history and occurrence records to determine regions of like distinct evolutionary history for the world's turtles. So you can kind of say like this particular region in Madagascar has this type of phylogenetic diversity that isn't really found anywhere else. And
Mm.
yeah, so it was a project sort of born out of what I wanted to learn and like what I wasn't good at, and then I just tried to make it something applicable towards conservation and like cool biodiversity big data research.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that part of your research and I was like, man, that's awesome. And that's great work to do in the field of conservation as well. But with, putting things out there, sometimes you can find a lot of people put things out that give, you know, miscommunication, misinformation. So how do you stay grounded when that kind of gets challenging, like seeing all of that out there? And sometimes like pushing back on those misinformations or those unpopular ideas.
Yeah, I've had I guess a very intentional journey with like misinformation and trying to figure out what is the best way to handle it.
Hmm.
I think like when I was very early on in my like social media and education career, I would just confront it and I would debate and I would be in the comment sections forever. And kind of after a few years of doing that, I realized it doesn't change anyone's minds and it just makes me stressed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's social media is a wild
Refreshing the
beast.
comments.
Yeah, like it got so bad. The amount of people that say your comment section is insane. I had a I had a research group reach out because I guess my comment section reached a threshold for hate speech or something. And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
what? I just want to teach people about frogs. Why? Um,
My
so
goodness.
like yeah, I don't know. It's part of the world now, I guess. But yeah,
Mhm.
my like specific strategies now are I either just don't read the comment sections on certain posts or at all. But if someone is like challenging it or speaking out with misinformation, usually I hide or delete their comment just to not spread it, not vicariously, but alongside my own posts. But often
Right.
yeah, but where I used to just knee-jerk reaction, no, that's wrong, here's why, list some sources, I just take that and make a post from it. Um, I found that works way better, where instead of just, you know, yeah, getting into a comment section argument that no one can really read effectively and it's not really fun to type out, I just say, let's just take
Mhm.
that information, take a step back, actually spend a few hours to make it more professional and better sourced than what I can reasonably do with my thumbs, randomly in the line at the coffee shop or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it's definitely just like make make a post from it, and then I don't know, so at some point you just gotta have to ignore them because I always say, like, do you trust the person who spent 3 hours to make the post or the person who spent 5 seconds to write the comment saying LOL, you're dumb? It's like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna treat them as very different sources. But it's hard. It's really hard because they're trying to get a rile out of you most of the time, really.
Yeah, yeah, they really are. Also, I wanted to ask, this is kind of like one of my personal questions. There was something that I read that like really resonated with me. You said that you kind of spent most of your time at the beginning behind the camera. And so you went from like rarely showing your face to like being fully in front and, amassing this huge following. So for someone like me who also tends to hide behind the lens, what's your advice on getting more comfortable putting yourself out there when it comes to science communication?
Oh, this is so cool. I feel like all the questions keep like looping back to a different stepping stone. So
Yeah.
yes. So I guess like when I first started social media, and particularly Instagram, I had a personal account, but I made it was on a camping trip out at Guadalupe Mountain in West Texas. It was like a solo trip, spent 8 hours hiking, and I just said I want to make an account. I'm right at this early stage of my biologist career. And I just was realizing that so many people have a sort of one version of conservation that has been that way since kind of the 1960s, 1970s,
Mhm.
and it hasn't really been updated in that time. It's like I'm still learning works from then, but not much recently. So my original account was contemporary conservationist, and the whole
I
point
like
was to
that.
just, yeah, I liked it. I liked alliteration. I was like, I like that a lot. But what happened was I was sharing wildlife photography and then doing education in the captions. And I quickly
Mhm.
realized that nobody was reading the captions. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So I don't know, when was this? Maybe 4 years ago, I made a very hard brand pivot and went to Dillon the Biologist. I put my face out there. I started making like the videos for like the trending audio videos and everything. Um,
Okay.
yeah. And so that was like a massive switch. And then I started being a little more political and stuff, which was where I learned people were not reading the captions because a lot of people were surprised at my views of the world, even though I had been saying it for years. But it was just, yeah, people don't do a lot of research. So whenever I
Mhm.
made that switch, it was part of it was realizing that I'm performing. I'm not necessarily being exactly me. Like in the same way that it's sort of you go to speak at a conference or whatever, that researcher voice you have when you're speaking, that's not necessarily you.
Right.
It's a performance.
Right.
Yeah, it's what you have to do to kind of put yourself out there.
Mhm.
And maybe that's just because I was a theater kid in high school, so I can make that separation a little bit easier. It's like I know I have a presenter voice. I know I have a tour guide voice as well. Like my southern accent doesn't really come out very well whenever I'm just speaking or talking or interviewing. But whenever I'm with friends, it comes out. Yeah, it comes out a lot. So most of it is just, yeah, realizing it's a performance, and not getting too hung up on it. And I mean, at some level, it's kind of nice because you have the ability to craft the argument the way you want to. With live and in person, there is that back and forth, which is awesome. I think prevents a lot of miscommunications and misunderstandings. But online, it's like you have this awesome way to make a performance and do it in a way that you really want to. Granted, doing it the way you picture it in your mind is very hard for social media.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yes.
misunderstandings were constant. But yeah, I think there's just like a separation of like no matter what you do, your persona on social media will never be 100% you. And I take a
Mhm.
little solace in that. I think that's kind of nice, honestly, because it's like, okay, if they don't like me, it's because they're misunderstanding or they don't really know me as a person. They just see one particular video, one, two sentences, and they make all their claims and opinions based on me. So my OPA has a phrase of that 49% of people will hate you no matter what you do. So focus on the 51%. And that always sticks with me.
Yeah, I mean, at least it is the majority technically, you know.
Yeah.
So you did talk about also learning through, taking different missteps and the power of knowing when to pivot. So how do you know, or what gives you the sign to know it's time to shift again or pivot again?
That's a really good question because I never know if I really pivot or if I'm just kind of stumbling down the stairs. And just sort of, like, I don't know if you ever had to run down a trail really fast and you're like, I'm just going this way. And if I happen to go left or right, that's just what happens. So I think we talk about pivoting and really what it is it's just always moving forward. Um, it just
Hmm.
means that like if you get to a point and it didn't work out, it's like, well, what can we do? We can't go forward anymore. I got rejected from the job or the funding fell through or I don't have the money to do the thing. So it's, do I continue down the same path? Do I backtrack a bit and go down the other way? Or do I just, yeah, I mean, you can go to a different path, but I don't really do that. I like to keep going in one direction and stick with it. I don't know, something about that incremental progress leads to massive change once it
Hmm.
compounds. So, yeah, I mean, like I had a zoo idea for a good while. My family background makes it really easy to do a zoo in some capacity, but that didn't work out. I got into field research more and more. So, cool, just kept plugging away at that. I had a brief plan of moving to Belize for a little bit, and then I got a cat. So I didn't want to give up my cat. So I was like, cool, let's pivot. Let's go and move to North Carolina instead and be around salamanders. So it's just sort of like it is what it is. You can't change the past. You have only some degree of influence on your current state, but you have more influence on your future. So I don't know. Even if it doesn't work out, I'm happy I'm on the trail.
That's powerful. I was going to put that.
Yeah. Cool.
So
I just
I,
I kind of pulled that out of my butt, so that was nice.
well, it's working. Okay, so I'm gonna circle back to animals. So final question here. You probably don't have a favorite, but do you have a favorite animal that you like really like or
It's so hard with biology. It's, I always say like my favorite group are salamanders. It's like, yeah, there's like a few thousand species, so hard to narrow it down a little bit. But yeah, there's just something about salamanders and their life history traits. The ranges in which they live are influenced by, I mean, millions of years of climate and plate tectonics and biogeography, and they're just, I mean, there's these organisms in the mountains around us that don't have lungs. They have a prehensile tail. They can shoot their tongues out and grab things. It's just like they're just so cool. And every time I look at them more, there's like something else. So amphibians are always going to be my favorite. Salamanders at the top. Frogs are like kind of constantly fighting for the top spot. But I've also worked a lot with bats, and I've really liked their ecology. It's really been kind of a fascinating thing because it's so different than what I'm used to. And yeah, I'm kind of always looking at the next project and the next like cool idea to work with.
Yeah, I really love speaking to different people and seeing their faces genuinely light up when they're talking about the things that they're interested in. For you, salamanders, for some people, snakes. So I've really enjoyed hearing your perspective. And I do want to say thank you so much for taking the time with me. Thank you for sharing your science journey. And I know a lot of people will find inspiration in your story and knowing that sometimes things aren't always linear, especially with journeys. So, also, I do want to ask, where can people learn more about Learn Adventurously so we can tag that in this video?
Yeah, so the quickest place is the website, which is just learnadv.com. I realized adventurously was kind of long to spell, and I always misspelled it, so I was like, I'm just going to shorten it. So learnadv.com, that has everything. But also, you follow me on socials. Instagram, Threads, and YouTube are probably my main areas, but I'm I should be talking about Learn Adventurously more, but that's marketing, and I don't like marketing, so
Yeah, but I mean, it's an awesome platform, so I would definitely say for sure. But I will link those as well in the video. And again, thank you so much for this interview with me.